It is the start of a brand new work week, and we are going to take a look at your extended forecast. Meteorologist Alex probably had to step out this morning, so I'll be filling you in, but he will be back tomorrow morning. We have a lot to break down in the upcoming forecast. Something that you're probably aware of is how cold it is this morning, and that's actually not even the coldest that we're going to see this week. Remember, your weather impact alert is in place for tomorrow morning, so I'm going to break down a little bit further what the first freeze of the season is going to look like tomorrow, what you need to know, and how you can prepare, and then a little bit of a sneak peek what the temperatures are going to do on the back half of the 7-day forecast. So we kind of have a big change on the horizon considering how things feel and look right now, but we'll start with the right now. So across all 4 sky cams this morning, clear blue skies. We almost have no clouds out there right now. That's not exclusive to Warner Robins and Macon. Same kind of story over there in Dublin and at the fairgrounds over Perry, but something that you can't see is the cold air that has settled in this morning. It has been a chilly start to the day, not only in our area, but across most of the United States. We have this massive area of kind of upper level low pressure that's been brought down into the southeast, and you can just kind of see the outline of it here. It's this trough of cooler air that actually originated way back up in Canada. So really cold air that's been brought down into our area, and you can see it's just not exclusive to the state of Georgia. It is taking over most of the eastern half of the United States this morning. At least some perspective, we're not quite as cold as up in Indianapolis at 28, but our 40s are still feeling pretty brisk this morning. You can see across our specific area, temperatures right now are already in the low 40s. So we were a lot cooler this morning. Low temperatures dropped down into the low 30s for most. So we've warmed up a little bit, and there is plenty of sunshine out there. So even though it's chilly, at least we do have the sunshine. We don't really have cloud cover or anything just kind of making it feel worse. But even despite that, the temperatures are having a hard time getting any warmer than this. So we're right now in mainly the mid to upper 40s, but you can see over in our northwestern counties still hanging on to the low 40s. So a little bit cooler there where they're closer to that northwesterly flow. A little bit warmer down in our southeastern counties. We're saying mid to upper 40s over in this area, but kind of no matter where you are, it still feels really chilly. And there is this other factor that is driving these temperatures to feeling a little bit cooler. The winds and the wind gusts. You probably have already noticed this if you've stepped outside at all this morning. Even myself, when I was getting in my car this morning, my hair was up in a tornado because the wind is just crazy strong, and it's going to stay this way throughout the entire afternoon. You can see the coloring of the map. Normally when we have some light to maybe steady wind, the map is gray or blue. When we start to see these colors of orange, yellows, reds, those type of things, that means that the wind is consistently very strong. And if that's not enough of an indication for you, take a look at the actual wind gusts. These are the numbers in yellow here. Almost everybody having a wind gust over 20 miles per hour. Eastman getting close at 16 miles per hour. Everybody's got a strong sustained wind, 15 to 20 miles per hour with wind gusts that will get over. And I'll tell you what, even though these wind gusts are already over 20 miles per hour, this is not even the strongest wind that we'll see through the rest of the day today. So really gusty winds obviously are adding to how things feel outside. Remember, we just saw the actual temperature values, but factoring in the wind chill, this is how things actually feel. So we were talking about the low 40s up in our northwestern counties, but check a look at the feels like numbers. Already in the mid to upper 30s. So a lot cooler in terms of how things feel over in that area, and that's not exclusive. Even where we were in the upper 40s, we're feeling more like the low 40s. So the wind chill will play a factor throughout the rest of today. Certainly will play a factor as the sun starts to go away. So later tonight, if you got outdoor plans, the wind will still be there and the temperatures are going to wind down into our first freeze of the season. So a frigid Monday night and a frigid start to Tuesday as well, which we're going to talk more about here in just a minute. But overall, Monday's actually not going to be too bad of a day. It's going to be cold, yes, for sure. And then again, freeze warning sets in tonight, which we're going to talk more about with your weather impact alert. But it's not too bad out there. We'll keep the sunshine around all day long. High temperatures today will be in the upper 40s, so still very chilly. I wouldn't go putting your winter jacket away at any point today, but I would say all things considered, it's not the worst that it possibly could be. It's just a little bit chilly through today. So let's talk a little bit more about the satellite and radar. Obviously, we kind of just went through this big change in our atmosphere. We've had a change in the air that's settled in over us. And then when we kind of look further towards the north, you can see there is something going on with the weather over there. We're quiet down here in central Georgia, but up towards the north, you can see a lot of cloud cover. Even further north than this, there's been a lot of snow, and some of the moisture is kind of stretching into northern Georgia. So as we go through the rest of the day today, they are actually going to have to pay attention for some snow flurries maybe Down here in central Georgia, we aren't going to be talking about anything like that. It's going to be quiet, a bit more boring here. You can see this is the satellite and radar with the clouds. Occasionally there have been 1 to 2 clouds, but when we take the clouds away and just focus on the radar, there's no showers out there. And spoiler alert, it's going to be a long time before we start talking about rain again. So I'll show you the future view on North Georgia here just because I think it's interesting when we're already in November and we're already talking about snow chances up in North Georgia. Some of this wraparound moisture from a low pressure system that's a little further towards the north will actually cause some flurries up in North Georgia, and they're even talking about potential accumulation. Again, not getting anywhere close to us. I just thought it was kind of cool and worth mentioning, and then that will kind of quickly move on as we settle into Tuesday. It does gradually get warmer throughout this work week, so anything that they happen to see, it's going to be pretty short-lived, but worth mentioning for sure. So what about down here in our area? Well, I kind of gave you a little bit of an indication of what the week is going to be like. Rain chances are going to continue to stay pretty low. Through today, we'll stay nice and sunny, thank goodness, because all the sunshine that we have will help those temperatures not feel quite as bitter. And then as we climb into the overnight hours tonight, we stay nice and clear, which really allows the temperatures to drop low. That's why we have the hard freeze on the way for tomorrow morning. So staying clear tomorrow morning as well, all the way through the day tomorrow. And then we kick off Wednesday nice and clear once again, all the way through Wednesday. We stay clear as well. Are you noticing a pattern here? It's one you're going to notice for the rest of the entire work week here, all the way through Friday. Still no rain chances. All the way through Saturday, still no rain chances. The good news is the 7-day forecast doesn't go without a single rain chance. There is one on there. We had it originally for Sunday. Now the models have kind of gone back and forth with this. You kind of know the drill. When we're at the very end of the 7-day forecast, these long range models, they change a lot day to day. They're trying to get their head around what could be happening at the end of the forecast. Right now, both of these models try to pick up on some sort of widespread rain chance making its way in from the west here into Georgia, maybe sometime Sunday heading into Monday. So this latest model run favors Monday a bit more, and then you can see the Euro model has this falling apart a lot before it gets here. The GFS model has been a little bit more gung-ho on this actually coming through into our area. So we'll just have to pay attention to this as we go through the next couple of days. Right now you're going to see the rain chance for Sunday. We might have to fine tune that this evening and maybe change that to Monday once that gets added to the 7-day forecast, but potentially there could be another shot of rain on the way for the end of the 7-day forecast. But if you have interests in Monday all the way through Saturday, you are going to be smooth sailing in terms of rain chances. It will be completely dry every single day until maybe Sunday when another rain chance could be on the way. So obviously we do need the rainfall still. We've been talking about drought conditions a lot over the last 2 months or so. We did actually get a little bit of rain over the weekend. Our northern counties, if you're in spots like Putnam, Hancock, they actually did have a severe thunderstorm warning briefly on Saturday evening. So that's why the rainfall totals are a little bit heavier up here in those 2 counties. I think in some of the higher spots, one of the pixels I could grab said maybe close to 2 inches of rain in the heaviest spots. So they got a good thunderstorm up there, and that actually allowed them to get some pretty substantial rainfall totals. We also had a couple of showers and a few rumbles of thunder down in our southeastern counties as well. South of I-16 was where most of those showers existed. A little bit lower in terms of the actual rainfall totals that were able to be tacked on there, probably closer somewhere to right around an inch of rain. So overall, the rain chances that we had for the weekend really didn't tack on some crazy totals. Obviously, we will take what we can get, but when we take a look at the drought monitor, it's something that is still becoming quite familiar to us. Most of our counties are still in moderate drought conditions. With the latest drought monitor, these come out on Thursdays. We actually had a few areas get added to the severe drought category. Not in our area specifically, but extreme drought existing just to the northwest of us. So this is something that wasn't really corrected with rain chances from the weekend. By the time we get to the drought monitor that comes out this Thursday, you likely won't see a lot of change with this map unless potentially it's in the negative direction. So this is still something that we need to be paying attention to as we go through the next couple of weeks. We still could really use some rainfall. We haven't really seen a ton this month. We did better this month, or we did better in October than we did in September, but as we climb into November, still kind of looking at what's going to be that next major rainmaker and potentially bring us out of the drought category. So still very present in our forecast. Remember, I showed you that we don't really have a rain chance through this Saturday, but as we start looking towards the end of the 7-day forecast, it did look like there potentially could be some rain chances on the way. With the Climate Prediction Center's 8 to 14 day outlook in terms of rainfall, it looks like we could be somewhere near average in terms of the amount of rainfall we're expecting to see within the next 2 weeks or so. We're not necessarily totally in this below average category, but we're kind of teetering between the below average and the near normal category, which means we could see a little bit of rainfall like we just saw this past weekend, but there's not necessarily a major rainmaker heading our direction. But on the flip side of that, we're also not expecting to see no rain chances in the next week, if that makes sense. We're kind of sitting somewhere in the middle of seeing a good rain chance and it just being something that's not very impressive. So kind of the same thing that I just emphasized with the long range models here, but hopefully we can maybe turn this around as we head into next week. But it's just not something that we're going to do through the rest of this work week. So unsurprisingly, temperatures become the bigger story through this week, and unsurprisingly because today you're waking up to a completely different story to the weekend and honestly to the week that we had last week. The high temperature yesterday, 80 degrees. There was plenty of sunshine. It was actually a pretty nice day aside from maybe a sprinkle or two that some spots ended up getting. But other than that, it was a pretty good day. 80 degrees was the high. That's well above average for this time of year. So we were particularly warm yesterday and on Saturday as well, and a lot of days last week also. Now the low temperature yesterday was right around where it should be. We were in the upper 40s. We should be somewhere in the low to mid 40s, so it was a little warmer than the average, but overall it was still pretty close. So to give you some perspective, we actually should still be fairly warm in November. We shouldn't be quite where we are today, but we should be a little bit cooler than what we saw last weekend. Overnight lows should be, again, remember this, somewhere in the low 40s. So let's talk about where we are right now and where we're going to be heading tomorrow morning. Your weather impact alert is in place for early Tuesday morning. It really starts late night tonight. This is going to be the first hard freeze of the season. So obviously it was really cold this morning. We probably had some areas that got below freezing this morning, but this is going to be a widespread hard freeze across almost the entire state. We're expecting temperatures to get into the 20s, likely the mid to upper 20s in most spots. And again, that is going to be really cool, and it will feel even more cool when you factor in the wind chill that we'll have for the morning. So to kind of emphasize this point, the National Weather Service has issued a freeze warning, not only in our area, but you could just see there across most southeastern United States. So this is really a widespread deep freeze that's happening all across the southeastern states. It is going to be chilly, not only here in our state, but really in a lot of other places as well. So you see our area completely outlined in pink. There's going to be nobody really exempt from seeing these freezing temperatures in the morning. It will be a widespread cold, and a lot, if not all places, will see temperatures in the mid-20s. So what a freeze warning really is kind of just emphasizing what I just said. It's when the National Weather Service expects a widespread area to be in a hard deep freeze. So this is what we're going to be experiencing tomorrow morning, and it's going to come as a little bit of a shock to your system. Again, the lows somewhere from 20 degrees into the upper 20s is kind of what they're emphasizing with this freeze warning. And really it starts late night tonight. So if you're going to be out later this evening once the sun goes down, really 7 p.m. and on, that's when these temperatures are really going to start feeling uncomfortably cold. And then all the way through tomorrow morning, so early in the morning, that's going to still stick with us. If you have to head out to the bus stop, if you have early morning commute or anything like that, just make sure you're bundled up. I know sometimes it can feel a little bit ridiculous, but you're not being ridiculous with this. We are really going to be experiencing a cold that we haven't felt in quite some time. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to take you through the actual numbers that we're going to see for the next 2 days, and then we're going to factor in the wind chill and take a look at how things are actually going to feel in the morning, because I'll tell you what, it's a little bit worse. So let's start with the actual numbers here. Right now we're somewhere in the 40s. As we climb into the afternoon, the temperatures that you see right now on the temperature map probably not going to look a whole lot different. We're probably going to see a few areas climb into the upper 40s. I would say maybe 50 in some of our southeastern counties could be the highest that they could see, but a lot of places will just hang out in the mid to upper 40s. It won't move much throughout the rest of the day today. So kind of take what you can feel outside right now and apply it to the rest of the afternoon. There's not going to be a major warming trend happening through today. It's going to stay pretty brisk and pretty chilly. Then, we talked about this just a second ago, when the sun goes down, it's going to start to be really, really cold. We're setting up for the deep freeze that's happening in the morning. By early tomorrow morning, actual temperatures, and I think that the graph may be shooting it a little high with these low temperatures, are probably going to be somewhere a little bit lower than this. I would say really mid to upper 20s. The same kind of thing that you just saw emphasized on the freeze warning, probably cooler than 30. So the deep freeze will happen tomorrow morning. But then as we climb into tomorrow afternoon, it's still not going to be super warm. So heading into the afternoon, it will be a little warmer than what we have today. I would say high temperatures will be somewhere in the low 50s, but today we're only expected to be in the upper 40s. So not too much warmer from today to tomorrow, just kind of still a little bit breezy and chilly heading into the rest of Tuesday. Then we wind into the overnight hours Wednesday. The good news with this freeze overall is that I would say it's pretty relatively short-lived. As we head into Wednesday morning, we still could potentially be at or maybe even a degree or two below freezing for a couple of spots, but overall, the widespread hard freeze I don't really think is going to be much of a factor for Wednesday morning. We kind of quickly hit this warming trend where we are heading right back towards average on the back half of the 7-day forecast. So if you are not a fan of cold weather, this has been a little bit too much of a cold snap for you. The good news is it won't be here for very long. So Wednesday morning, still cold. I'd still grab your jacket. We're still talking about temperatures that could get down into the low 30s, potentially below freezing in a couple of spots, but not quite as bad as your weather impact alert for Tuesday and then the temperatures that you woke up to this morning. Then by Wednesday afternoon, you're going to start to thaw out a little bit. High temperatures are going to be climbing a lot warmer than what we have today and what we're expecting to see tomorrow. Highs will be in the upper 60s. I wouldn't even be surprised if a couple spots found the low 70s. And then again, we're just kind of keeping on this warming trend for the rest of the upcoming week. Thursday morning is going to be even warmer until eventually in the second half of the week, we really just don't have to worry about freezing temperatures quite as much. So this is kind of a brief introduction to hard freeze, really, really cold temperatures because it gets you ready, gets your practices back in place, but overall, it's really just not here for super long. But it is important to pay attention to because, again, it's the first time we've had this in a while, and we have this awesome factor of the winds being really strong through today as well. That's making things feel worse. We talked about the feels like numbers a minute ago, but let's talk about what the rest of the day is going to look like. I told you wind gusts are only going to get gustier. Right now we have wind gusts up to around 25 miles per hour. Climbing into the rest of the day, I think the wind gusts could get even stronger, up to around 35 miles per hour. Remember, we talked about the coloring of the map. The current winds was showing us yellows and a little bit of orange, but heading into the afternoon, you can see we've got this widespread pink color, and that just shows that the winds are only getting gustier through the rest of the day. So it's going to be cold. Like I said, the temperatures out there are going to feel even worse when we have these wind gusts, and if you got to be outside for a long time, a windbreaker or something like that is going to be smart to have on you. The good news is this crazy wind really doesn't last long either. Tomorrow morning, there'll still be a little bit of a breeze out there, so that will be important for our morning lows. But heading into the afternoon, you can see we lose a lot of that pink shading. We kind of fade back into our blues, which means there will be a little bit of a steady wind out there, but it won't be so crazy, especially considering what we're seeing right now. Wednesday, again, still a little bit of a breeze, but overall, the main kind of insane gusty winds that are really going to be impacting the feels like temperatures, that kind of just is around for today. So let's take a look at the feels like numbers now that we've kind of looked at the wind gusts. Remember, I just showed you actual temperatures. So now what we're looking at is apparent temperatures, or what the air will feel like when you factor in the wind chills. So through this afternoon, where our actual temperatures are only climbing into the upper 40s, but with 35-mile-an-hour wind gusts, temperatures are going to feel a lot closer to the upper 30s, maybe low 40s in some of the warmer spots, so about 10 degrees cooler than what the actual air temperature will be later today. That is going to be brisk. That's why I said don't go putting away your winter jacket heading into the rest of the day. It's still going to be pretty uncomfortably cold later today. Then by tomorrow morning, your weather impact alert, again, the deep freeze Tuesday morning, actual air temperatures will be in the low 20s to upper 20s across the state. And the feels like numbers are going to be well into the low 20s. It is going to still feel brisk. The winds won't be quite as strong as what you're seeing this afternoon, but they will still be present. So it's still going to be really chilly out there. Lots of dry air, lots of opportunities for this temperature to dip down and for the feels like number to feel even more cold. So have your winter jacket out. Again, I really want to emphasize kids at the bus stop. Make sure they're bundled up. If you have to be out early and you have to be outside for an extended amount of time, you just want to make sure you're dressed appropriately. I've been dripping my faucets overnight. That's probably something you'll want to do heading into about Wednesday as well. So the good news is we kind of lose a lot of that wind heading into Tuesday afternoon, and the actual air temperature will kind of represent how things feel outside, and then feels like numbers, they really don't become much of a factor except for maybe Wednesday morning heading into the rest of the week. Remember, we're on a warming trend after that, and then things are just going to kind of feel how they actually are outside. So overall, it's really this brief stint of Monday, Tuesday, maybe creeping a little bit into early Wednesday morning of just really, really shockingly cold air. So you know kind of the things to do, but just in case you need a little bit of a refresher, just make sure you're dressing warm. I know it seems a little bit obvious, but sometimes we can forget how low 20s actually feel when we've been sitting in the 40s for so many days. So make sure you're dressing warm. Don't be afraid to bust out your winter coat. I did it this morning, and I'll tell you what, I didn't regret it. If you've got outdoor faucets, things that are exposed, outdoor pipes, wrapping those in insulation is always a good tip. You can wrap rags, things like that around the pipes that prevents them from bursting. And then of course, doing like what I did this morning, dripping the faucets inside, that can also help with that as well. Your plants outside, actually, if you water them before the freezing temperatures occur, because water has a higher freezing value, then you can help have their plants stay alive a little bit longer. So if you got sensitive crops or just plants that you can't really bring inside, just go ahead and water them sometime today, and that may help keeping them safe as we head into early tomorrow morning. So those are just a couple of practices that you can put in place. Probably would have been best to put them in place this weekend, but as we go throughout today, when we hit the heat of the day, we still will be in the upper 40s, and you can probably still do a lot of these things. Just wear your jacket if it's things that you got to be outside to do. So temperature-wise, rain chance-wise, that's what's going on in our area here for the next couple of days. While we're on the extended stream and still in tropic season, obviously we like to touch on what's going on with the tropics. So if you're curious, in the Atlantic, we still currently have no areas of potential tropical development. Now today is November 10th, and as we climb into the next 20 days, we are in the last 20 days of Atlantic hurricane season. It officially ends on November 30th, but the good news is there is a huge decrease in activity once we hit the back half of October. Obviously, there was an exception this year. We had Hurricane Melissa, a historic and very destructive hurricane, but now that we've entered November, we're still on that downward trend of activity. When you're in November, the air is just a little bit more hostile. There's more wind shear. The temperatures in the waters get cooler. There's not as many of those tropical waves rolling off of Africa. So overall, a huge decrease in activity is still expected through the rest of the month. And then I think we are going to wind down and close out the month really not having to worry about the tropics much. And it will actually be a pretty important year once we do officially close out the season. This could be potentially a historic year for the United States. So far this season, we have gone the entire season without seeing a landfalling hurricane. Now there's an exception. Of course, we did have Tropical Storm Chantal that made landfall along the North Carolina, South Carolina coasts, but we didn't see a landfalling hurricane. So that would be the first time since 2015 that the United States went without seeing a landfalling hurricane. And it's definitely something that I'll be talking a little bit more about as we climb closer to the end of the month. If you're also curious where we stand in terms of how many storms we saw, how many named storms, how many major hurricanes, all of the details from the hurricane season, I think I'll be putting something like that together as well as we head towards the end of the month. So more details to come as we wrap up tropic season, but right now I'm keeping my fingers crossed. Things are quiet, and it really doesn't look like we have any indication that it would be picking up in activity in the next couple of weeks. So tropics wise, things are good, and that means we can focus on the weather that we have here in our area. Remember, your weather impact alert is in place for early tomorrow morning. The freeze will be happening across the area. Low temperatures will be down in the low to mid 20s, likely in a lot of spots, maybe upper 20s in a couple of the warmer areas, but no matter where you are, expect to be below freezing. The good news is climbing into the back half of the 7-day forecast, I tease this a lot, but I mean, take a look at it for yourself. We quickly work our way from the low 50s into the upper 60s in terms of high temperatures by Wednesday, and those 60s turn into 70s as we make our way towards Thursday. Thursday into the weekend, we stay in the low 70s. So things are really going to start to be warm again in the afternoon. If you remember how things felt last week, it's going to be pretty similar heading into the back half of the 7-day forecast. This is a really cold start to the week that turns into a mild, right around average end of the week. I emphasize the average temperatures because once we climb into the second half of the week, we're kind of hanging out right where we should be for this time of year. Average high should be right around 71. Average low should be right around 44. So we even kind of lose those really deep cold mornings. We're going to be right back in the 40s heading into the rest of the week. And again, right around average and not quite as bad as what we experienced in the first half of the week. Not really any rain chances Monday all the way through Saturday, but I did mention we're paying attention to what Sunday could look like. You saw it yourself, the long range models not necessarily totally agreeing on what Sunday could look like or if it's more of a Monday situation, but there's something out there on the long range model. So right now there is a rain chance for Sunday. You may see that this evening turn into a rain chance for Monday or for both. We'll kind of see how that looks as we go through the rest of the week, but right now it does look like there could be at least some sort of rain chance heading into the end of the weekend and maybe the early start of next work week. But for now, if you've got outdoor plans Monday all the way through Friday or for Saturday, things are looking pretty good for you, so you don't really have much to worry about in the way of rain. Just got to stay warm in the first half of the work week and then start planning your outfits around high temperatures in the 70s as we head into the second half of the work week. Of course, we'll be talking a lot more about this through the rest of the day today. If there's any changes or anything you need to know, you'll hear it from us first, and then meteorologist Alex Pry will be back with you tomorrow morning at 11 a.m. for another look at the extended forecast. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm meteorologist Ansley Parker, and I hope you have a great and warm Monday.